Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to this week's enrichment. We are heading in really cool territory. So last time I did it was like a recap and a synopsis. And the reason that I do that is not so you take on these beliefs as your own. The reason that I do that is so you have some kind of it's like scaffolding and like blueprinting so that you can create with some form. Because I realized that organized religion is organized in its organizing religion for a purpose. There's a spiritual purpose behind that plan. And basically what it is it's like organized religion says those that are in compliance with what we've organized around rules and those that are not. And we are moving from one phase of development into another, and we're moving from a phase of development where it was really important to have some kind of scaffolding, some kind of order around what it meant to have faith, work with technologies of faith. But because those rules were mislaid, as a really good way of putting them, the transformation that we're having right now as humanity is into a more coherent sort of a place. And so as we do that, we are going to go into the Akashic Records, but I wanna sort of clarify myself a little bit in terms of what I think in terms of leadership is. I feel that this is spiritual interactive prayer in one way or another. It's connecting with the divine, being receptive to hear that message, and having it come through symbols that are given in a way that can be made sense of. If you think about the technology of a parable. The technology of a parable is one where you come into, it's like a joke actually, the story structure. It's like a punchline, that there's a revelation. You come into the story with an assumption, you leave with a revelation, you have a new view, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's a technology that we move through. The story doesn't matter. We move through the movement. The story aids the movement, but it doesn't really matter. And so when we are working with our spirituality, it's important to understand that it's like an acid trip. That's seems terrible phraseology. I don't think that's a word, but basically what I mean by that is everybody in the room can be taking the same dose of the same substance and have completely different experiences because their unique lens shows those symbols for them in a way that they're not going to appear for other people, but we can all make sense of what these symbols mean communally. It's both personal and impersonal, and we're looking at that right now, the nature of personal and impersonal with Caroline Mies. So, Caroline Mies, I think I said that right. But anyway, so as we move through these the chutes and ladders of what we experience in the way of life, we are going from the impersonal, which was the sort of structures that we kind of laid out in the sort of synopsis thing. And again, back to my original point that I didn't finish making. I want you to think of a story structure. I want you to think of what is brought to you as a story structure. What you do with that story structure is an example of how to build belief that you can kind of believe into. Because with organized religion being gone, there's a protective faculty towards organized religion. In compliance, you believe into sort of a result from that compliance, and it equals a kind of dishonest harmony within the framework of what was. But what we're going into in terms of honest harmony still requires some kind of a framework. So we can't just say to structure we don't need you. Structure is needed. You can bring any structure that most fits you, and what you're given in the way of a learning process is examples of what other people or what another person might be seeing. So I say that because we're entering into territory where we have an establishment of belief coming from all of the stuff that we figured out with Lisa Lee, but again, it's all meant to be not organized religion. It's guide. It's not dogma, but at the same time, for me, it's all true. So, take it however you want. So what I want to do with this now is we're moving into the Akashic Records. And what I want you to understand about some of the details that are going to be coming through the Akashic Records with the readings that we are going to do. A school of fish is how I see a collective. That means that school of fish is moving together within the same current. And that current, it's hard to determine whether it's the current that's moving them or it's the collective agreement and consciousness that's moving them. But that means that the story structure for all of those people are the same. The individual details might parallel crisscross, but they're also all like of the same movement. The same movement is happening. And so I invite you to move into these stories from the perspective of, like that it's an oral tradition, like being an oracle, an interactive prayer, and the oral tradition, like at the technology of faith that is there, is you are invited into like what spirit is bringing through about you, and the catharsis that comes is like that release. It's like the punchline of a joke, or like the revelation at an end of a parable. That catharsis is a technology of faith. And so I feel like I just needed to lay that out. I don't really know why. But we are going into the Akashic Records with a very specific goal. And that is to look at the stories that formed you in the womb world. So the womb world is going to be you forming in the womb. What do you think happens when you're forming in the womb? Because when you're forming in the womb, so this is stuff that I see. And again, I'm bringing it through as gospel, because for me, I see it and I'm like, oh, that's it. And then I relay it. And so when I say the womb world, what ancestors have shown me and what I've seen is that this complex system that we're all a part of, and the sorting and the weaving and the forming and the expansion and the like the unique aspect, and then the collective aspect, the nothing new under the sun sort of aspect of it, is such that like it's a way more interesting and cool. And womb world is a unconscious sort of a place. And it's the unconscious space, it's the unconscious world, it's the repository of genes and all the stories that accompanied them. And you're moving through as a soul essence, and you're picking up as a soul essence these different traits. Like as you interact with an energy, you decide to like that energy can then imprint on you, that energy imprints on you, and then you interact with another energy and another energy and another energy. And some imprints are so like replica, like there's a replica sort of imprints, and then some are really diverse, and very rarely we'll see like hybridized kind of stuff go on. And the hybridized stuff, and this is really cool that I saw this vision, the hybridized traits. So hybridized trait would be you have the shape of your mom's nose, but the size of your dad's nose. And so like, I don't know how this would work in genetics, because I know absolutely nothing about the biology of it all. Like that's true. I actually don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I think that's the beauty of like when stuff comes through like this. But this notion of like these genes that came about, and like your guides are telling me, I have to say this like very clearly, they came about through, and I think I have to curse, fucking or fighting, right? Effing or fighting, right? That's how they came about. It's these two traits that came together that like converged, that hybridization when they come into it. And I don't know if this is a genetic reality, but it seems to be a spiritual one. When they come into contact, it's either a falling in love merging, or it's a merge because there is a fight. So you formed around some kind of action. It's a water world. Womb world is a water world. And so the mystery that we're coming into, this womb world that formed the person that you are right now, the form that you would take physically, your physical manifestation. We're looking at that womb world. This is a world of water. This is mermaids. And so like there's something really beautiful about the way that we're entering this, because we're entering this at a mystery of why were your lineages at war. Why was there a battle that formed a fusion of traits that are so diverse in nature, and some even like came in together? Like again, there's like I see like almost a chimera, and I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but it's like two twins that form into one. I'm seeing something like that as being something that like is at play with whatever I'm talking about genetically. So here is it's a form. Yeah, they're saying it's a type of way of forming the world. When we think about twin flames and we think about twins in spiritual nature, twins are like naturally forming phenomenon. It's really cool. And they form into one person a lot of times, and sometimes they don't, but often they will. So let's take a look at the cards. Okay, let me focus. 4, 5. So this walking away, so you came in, oh, all right, so let's get a story around this before I jump in. I do want a story around this. This is actually conflict, right? All right, so the bottom of the deck, I saw that so clearly. Bottom of the deck, we have the 5 of Swords. So we have a fight. We have the 7 of Swords. We have a Ace of Wands, the Star, the Magician, and a 8 of Cups. So we're talking about a battlefield here in womb world that you were about. That there was a battle. At one point, you felt as a spirit like you could trust no one. Why were they fighting in womb world? Let's get some information. I really like this reading. Wherever this is going, I'm super excited about it. And whenever like my nose activates, like I don't know if you can hear it, but like sometimes I get really stuffy. Sometimes my nose gets like runny, and sometimes I get really itchy. I always think about that 50s show Bewitched, where she twinkles her nose whenever she does a spell. And there is something for me with like magic and a twinkly nose. But for me, it's like not cute. It gets like, I get like a stuffy nose, and then I have to like mouth breathe and like, it's, you know, but not always. Just it depends on like what energies I'm working with. So you in womb world, we see a battle taking place, and also like there would have been a tumultuous counterpart in the manifested world. So there may have been some kind of tower moment within the family. I do see a hard pregnancy somehow. Like I see that the pregnancy itself, there's a lot of stress hormones in the body that are agitating a kind of conflict between energies within the body. And so when we incarnate, we hold as a universe within us, like all of the energies of the ancestors that came before. It's almost like when we love our bodies and we take care of our bodies, we're taking care of the planet that is the whole, that is the universe that we are made of, from, and with. And so like everything that is within you that makes up like your defense systems, like blood cells, like, you know, you have like the angels within and the angels without. And I'm just getting some water in my throat. It's so dry in here. It's Texas, where it's like throat dry kind of place, and then runny nose. I don't know why I'm talking about stuffiness, but you got these allergies maybe too. It's weird to show me. You may have been born with like jaundice, or like there's something about the birth that I can't get over because I'm feeling like a whole thing in my face. But what I'm being shown here is that let's take a look at this. I hear like Capulet and Montague feuding families. The cave. Okay, so what is that? And also like early childhood, maybe crying a lot as an infant, like really a lot of crying, more than usual, needing to be really close to your caretaker. And also I'm seeing a sibling close in age. And you know, take it as it resonates. It's not for everyone. Some of these siblings are, I just see someone flying in before or after. Or coming onto the earth in like response to like, oh my God, what just happened? So like when you came into the world, like when you came from, like you were with womb world, I'm seeing some kind of like world war, some kind of like universe of like energies that are sort of like agitated into a conflict that forms like a new being. The temple, the shadow. And your guides are telling me it's a story that comes up. So your guides are telling me like that within the history of the entire of like ancestry, you have ancestors on your mom's side and ancestors on your dad's side. And when that DNA comes in and forms a new being, like in womb world, it means that these two lineages like are in relationship to each other. And I'm seeing that like they were peoples that spent a lot of time at war, one subjugating the other, like developing and creating like these defenses and these prejudices and these assumptions, these epigenetics. So so you enter into that space and these energies come into contact, and these are energies that do not like each other. And like there's something about this. We're gonna get some more information because that's like I'm showing with the shadow, yeah, the maiden and the village. All right, let's take a look. This is gonna get good. I'm hearing the bee's knees. So with this village here, I'm looking closely. Let me get some more cards. I'm actually looking at this record as things that are for me to share and things that are not for me to share, because a lot of this is very individual. So it's a water world, and you are still grieving and came into the world deeply grieving the experience. I'm seeing like when you were really little, like there's a fever and like hallucinating in the fever and feeling like everything was against you, or somehow everything's chasing you. You're trying to run away. You're trying to be safe. You found your way into the world with a lot of griefs in your little being, like in your little heart that you were holding about the story of what it meant to be you. Because that's the shadow. Like with the cave and the shadow, I'm seeing something that like came in attached to you, like very specifically. And I think that there's some grief related to that. And I'm trying to get in there. Because the magician, again, is speaking of a gift, like a set of gifts, not just one gift, but like your ancestors that like imprinted on you very specifically were trying to give you gifts that you could take with you into the world to like accomplish this mission and survive it. And so every feature that you have, there's an ally associated with that feature. And they're also, when they give you their features, they agree to come into the world with you as your guide. And so they go from the inside universe into the outside universe as your guidance system. And they knew this was going to be a hard life. Everyone's heart was going to be like in shambles on this. That cave there says like I think you took or plucked a mission that there was like, it was like you were such a warrior. There's a warrior aspect. So your soul had this energy of like, I'm here for the fight. And you may have, like with this Five of Cups again though, like that's significant. It's not rah-rah sis kumbaya. It was with great love that you agreed to take on this level of grief coming into the world. It's a disproportionate amount here, but with the Ace of Swords being about truth, and like that Ace of Cups being about a love that comes, like there is such a favor on you, and you are loved by the gods. You are loved by divinity. You are loved by deities. You are loved by God. Like, and God, and there's the biological model. You are actually known by the consciousness of the whole, like by the consciousness of God, basically. And you are also like very well, like I hear the word articulated, when your creation was very well articulated. So there isn't like some Mod Podge. I see like you running for your life into existence. I see that birth as being like an action adventure movie where you like slide under the door and like get born, you know what I mean? Like by the hair of your chinny chin chin. So I do see it as being that kind of a delivery into the world, but you were very well created and articulated for this showdown is essentially what it ends up being. There is a showdown in your lifetime that you are that womb world informed, and you are formed with great love. But you came in with great grief about this attachment and that the job of dealing with it. Okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. We have some water. Let's look a little bit. I want to see who's with you. I want to see who that gang of accompaniment is. Like it's bizarrely, there is kind of a preponderance of masculine energy around you. And I think that that's part of like what this is. So this, if you see this cave, like I'm seeing that as being like, an invitation into kind of like an Indiana Jones, like kind of a encounter with the shadow, not just any shadow, but the shadow. So like into the cave, and I am seeing the womb, and I'm seeing to confront the shadow. And I'm being told that on your maternal side, on that lineage, There was a shadow associated from another world, from another time, with certain traits and certain gifts that were suppressed from coming into the world in a certain kind of way. So whenever these traits would sort of like offer themselves for, you know, life, you know what I mean? Life would, like, if they got hold of life in a story that brought them forth into a womb world space, they were quickly snuffed out. So these were traits that wanted to expand, that wanted to grow, that wanted to experience themselves in life again, you know, through what it is to live. Like, you are the projector and you create life through that projection. You have this magic here that needs to be healed in order to properly express, but you are on your maternal side, the ancestors that were sort of in charge of the lineage, and there does seem to be some kind of an organization around this, said, no, 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 too destructive, won't survive. Every single time this combination of traits gets out, like, it hurts the family too much. Like, and that's something that was like karmic that your family needed to work out. These are shadows that they needed to face because no part of you gets left behind. So when we think about the universe within and all the aspects that create it, and when we think about what it is to even be loved by God, you, like, I was doing some spiritual work and I was like in a journey, and I was like dealing kind of like with an energy similar to this. I'll be honest with you, that reminds me like there's something there, but because it's an ancestral curse, and I think that like every woman who was like a temple like virgin at a certain point like went through this ritual, and it was just like, whoops, we shouldn't do that, you know. But what I'm being shown here is that that this energy was like its appeal to me in that journey was like, it was romantic love, but I'm in love with you. And if you like accept this love, and that the terms of that acceptance is captivity, right? Ownership. And I was like, well, no. And this energy is like, but what about like a tiny piece of you? Because of how much, look at how much I love you. Look at that, like, much. Don't make me have to be without you. And I said, absolutely not. I will not abandon a single piece of myself, not even a fragment. I'm abandoning none of me. And so like that's sort of like this energy's sales pitch, you know, on having access for whatever reason to gifts that were already yours with the Magician card there, was a like romantic love as a spell, like as a spell cast. I will put you in this, I think it's a mythology, and I have to go look for it because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, it's, you know, the channel just kind of picking up around this story of like a place that's like paradise. You go into this place of paradise. You go into this house and the fruits are delicious, and there's good meats, and there's yummy like wines. Like, I don't know, I'm just seeing a banquet. I'm just trying to like respond, like cakes and cookies, and there's beautiful people, and everyone's lounging in like the most extravagant long gowns and like beautiful hairs and like a whole situation. And they are listening to music and they're dancing and they're like intoxicated. And there's this problem though, is like when you go into that house, you can't get out again. And that space, like it's like constantly needing new infusions of life to keep from rotting. So for those people to continue, they have to stay in the oblivion, and they have to then become parasitic themselves, right? So that's so creepy. Why? What is that? So you came to fight that away. Somehow that's something that would like come in the form of like romantic love, like a party, delicious fruits, whatever. You know what I mean? Like fun games, dancing, but it would turn out to be a trap. And so time after time after time, and your generational like beautiful ancestors who have been watching this in a way that had to inform their own participation and their own like learning, that's what we're getting to with Who's With You. These are all ancestors who'd probably been taken down by this energy, this false guide before. And for you, your ancestors are saying every beautiful maiden that came from that situation, that mistake that we made so long ago, would come into the world and would get eaten by this, and then we would have to watch this destruction. And so we always cut this off at the past and said those traits aren't coming into the world. But the greater mind of God said these traits are what is needed. So we're going to just have to roll the dice on this. And so your womb world with the star card, that's that star card of like these traits are needed. And this ace of wands is like a great passion went into actually even like concealing. You came in with a lot of like where a lot of things were concealed from you. A lot of what you would be experiencing would be completely confusing and from another time and another world with other rules and other systems. So I got a little dizzy there. I don't usually get dizzy when I'm channeling, so let me have some water. That might have resonated like really hard. I don't know, some like I just felt like a little disorientation. So you also had the infusion of the ancestors on your paternal side. And so while we see this conflict brewing of ancestors on your paternal side, and I'm being told that ancestors on your paternal side had a series of gifts that would have been too much power to put into the hands of something that like was an ancestral curse that generally like ate the maiden and her power, and then made and subjugated it and enslaved and took its power. You know, taking her power for its own is the way that this like nefarious energy like looks at. And so for something to come in with its like gene imprint of bondage and also like a treasure trove of the like magic coming from the paternal side. So we have the maternal, like we don't let that demon in, you know, and then we have the paternal ancestry that's saying our best warriors have it in the bag. Like, don't worry, we know what we slay dragons all the time. Like that's kind of like the vibe that's going on. So that's just like, you know, with this 5 of swords, kind of contentious fighting sort of energy, because this is temple. So this is about the temple and something that needs to be healed around the story of the temple with you. And this maiden is representing you. So the village is what's around you. Let's look at who's with you. Let's look at your traits. Let's look at where they come from and who they are. And we're doing good with time. I like it. I like where we're going with this. So you come in grieving. You're fixated on loss. And your guides kind of want to get you away from that. It's almost like there's always been a fixation on loss that was like kind of hard to like comprehend. Like, why do I feel two things? Why do I feel like I'm being chased? And why do I have only why is there's so much loss around me, this fixation on loss? Like, so this energy comes in carrying a certain stamp. Like the way that it operates is it discredits you. It like attacks your self-worth. The less you feel you have a purpose, a value, a worth, the easier it has access to put you, to lull you into this sleep. It's like romantic, like it's like a spell. It wants to consume you. And so what does that mean? Consume is something that like, you know, that is a natural faculty of like death and rebirth, and relationship is this notion of like, when you consume and when you're being consumed. And I know that's really strange and scary and bizarre, but like given the it's womb world, you know what I mean? So womb world, I don't know if you know, like a lot of shaman stuff, there's this notion of like things consuming, eating each other. So that sounds so gross. I don't want to freak you out. I'm trying to, let me get like better, softer, cozier words for this process that I'm seeing. But like the traits that you're given, that the imprints that you have are from these ancestors for specific purposes. They're all specialized in one thing or another to help you get you through this. You're not by yourself. But there's something that's like flittering away. I hope it comes back. We'll see. So you have the magician with you, and you have the magician twice. So you come in as the magician and you have a magician with you. We're going to look at each of these individual energies, like, and these, something cool about you. I like it. This is cool. The Emperor is with you. Oh my goodness. So you've got some very powerful energies already. I felt that they were male energies. Temperance is with you. There's a whole situation here. Your traits are badass, to say the least. To say the least. The Ace of Coins and the Chariot. and I felt like you have just like too much male energy around you. I was confused by it actually. Like, oh, your guides are like, you're not getting it right. I got it. So all the traits that we are talking about, like very specifically, the family hasn't made use of them because they're dangerous in a certain kind of way. And very, very particularly, like they have not been in a woman or with a woman since this temple maiden life, because it was too dangerous. This consuming sort of energy around divine feminine energy is a shit show. And I know that there's a lot of cursing in this reading, and maybe YouTube will forgive me, maybe they won't. It depends on whether or not people press that report button on my potty mouth. But what I'm seeing here is like, yeah, these are not traits that have developed in a female in millennia. I'm being told millennia. This was an ancestral problem so it's coming back around for review and release in your lifetime. You are meant to like take your power back. You are meant to take dominion over the shadow and say, me and my people, like, we're not having you. Whatever the spell is, we are untangling it. We're cutting the ties. We refuse you entry, not welcome, like uninvited. That's the whole thing that is happening here. But that Ace of Cups and that Five of Cups means there's an entanglement, a soul entanglement from this lifetime that would have been, the spell was created with the substance of love. Spells that are created with the substance of love are very, very hard to break because they are the most powerful. That's the most powerful glue. It's a strong bond. That doesn't mean it's not breakable. It's breakable, but there's this need to almost like break your own heart. You have to be, now I don't want you, this is not bad news. Like, we're talking about womb world. And so that coming in with grief related to this great love would have been this energy's ability to come into life with you from womb world would have meant that it imprinted on you, and that imprint from that trait meant it was present when it meant you encountered it. It meant you had an encounter with it. And so like that's how the traits kind of come about, is like you're in womb world, and depending on what you encounter by way of archetypal story that your God puts you in, you either take on the trait or you don't take on the trait. And taking on this trait meant taking on this challenge of taking on this soul that was kind of, this is, that's why that vision, that's why Spirit brought me to that vision. When I said to the energy that I was dealing with, again, it's like a similar story because it was a ritual that was done on many souls, I'm told, many divine feminine energies. They're saying like, if not all. When I said, no, you can't have any piece of me. You can't even have so much as a fragment of my soul. I'm abandoning no part of me. That was the unbinding spell. That is the unbinding spell. Like a truth that is your truth that said, I will not be linked to anything. Like I belong to me. I belong to the temple. I do not belong to a false love. Why is this so tricky? Because it's not really a false love. It's like that binding ritual that I'm seeing that was so insidious because it used the substance of love against itself somehow. So like love and possession would have been linked. And so this energy is this soul retrieval thing that we see going on here, that we see playing itself out. We see you in a soul retrieval kind of thing. You're retrieving your soul from the story linked to this ancestor and this energy. So this ancestor would have passed on, and this energy would have come back with it, and come back with it, would have come following it. Trying to, reestablish this relationship. And to a certain extent in this life, reestablishing that relationship is setting yourself free from it. You can't really avoid it. And that's what your lineage is coming to grips with. By letting you come through, and they didn't want to have to deal with this. They were like, no, we're not going to subject our family to those traits being out in the open with this energy that wants to consume it and bring it into itself. And so these traits had historically been in the form of men to keep this problem from happening within the lineage. That doesn't mean that you're like physically as you formed. You may have formed as a masculine too, like par to this story, but you're still working it out with this life. So whether you decided in the womb that you were forming in the divine feminine aspect with the maiden, it's still a story about when you were a maiden, you know, or the divine masculine aspect that would not bring sexuality into the mix, because it is what your ancestors were defending against. Either way, you're still working it out. You're still working out the story. So you're surrounded by male guides because you're carrying that ancestral torch. Huh. All right. So in your male guides, you've got one that represents a chariot. This is an energy that is like by your side, your coach pulling you through, trying to get you. So like I do see with this chariot card, like you are like, it's the no attention span is almost what this energy is saying. Like you start something, like you go over here, you go over there. So this energy that has to get you from point A to point B kind of relates to you like this flibbity gibbet who, like, you know, you're on like the mission of a lifetime with this like warrior soul and like and all of these traits from like a time when like this is really important. And you, every time a butterfly goes by, you like lose your, like you're off the path. They're looking for you. They're trying to corral you back on. You're having a, like, you're not having it because you want to go that way, but no, we've always, we're going this way. And so like that was never something that your ancestors really like expected, because like as somebody who comes in with like divine feminine energy, because I'm speaking to two groups. I'm speaking to those of you who come in with the mantle of your family's like edict that no females get passed on with these traits, like, you know, that and that's also patriarchal. That's like some of the like lower vibrational aspects of like what you're dealing with and helping these family members through is a belief that like a woman can't deal with this, shouldn't have this amount of power. Like this is like, you know, there's just really bristling some of them. But with this chariot card, coming to grips with like what your strengths are. So this energy is like almost like I see a battle leader. I see what is that? It's like I guess it's a battle. It's like somebody is in a chariot. Exactly what we're looking at here. I don't know why I'm trying to describe it like this guy. So this military chief, I'm failing the correct title because I don't have that word in my brain. This guy is an energy that is with you, that is like a coach, and his job has always been like, we're doing like marching orders. And what this energy came in with, like marching orders, like this would have been energy in your like bullying, even trying to get you to like toughen up, trying to get you to look straight ahead, trying to get you to not to care about this and care about that. But you being like every little butterfly that came by and like falling in love with like a flower that blooms, and then when it's dying at the end of the season, like there's like these tears that never end, and your guides are trying to pick you up and explain to you that like the flowers, they go and they come, we can't fixate on them. Like your guides are showing me so many like particulars of like this beautiful little girl or little boy who's so sensitive and so imaginative and so in wonder and awe, because this soul is actually not an old soul. This soul is from a long time ago, very long time ago, but because of this entanglement within the DNA strand related to like this particular, it's like a demon, it's like a kind of a monster, sort of, not to be afraid. Like this is just the womb world, we're in womb world, and like how it came through for you right now, you're working it out so like expertly that there's no fear. But that energy of a type of that's mine, I own you, you belong to me. You have been able to defeat this foe by way of being distracted by something and then like flibbity-gibbeting around. Like it's a battle tactic that your guides never saw coming. They never expected that with the magician traits. You would be shape-shifting and by way of your own wonder and delight so much that like the enemy would try to like peg you down or try to like, you know, get you into a position, and you would lose track of what was going on, and like they could not calculate properly how to like pigeonhole you because you were too like, I see like water, like a river, like moving. And so like you have these magician traits with you. So like your guide here, who is the coach, you know, it has to sort of like contend with the fact that like your magic is divine feminine magic, which means it's going to like move in a way that you cannot pin it down no matter how hard you try. That's part of its brilliance and its beauty, and something that as you formed and you became you, part of that womb story of you like rushing out, like, was that they couldn't pin you down long enough to control the process, which is why you were made by God and not really made by them so much, which is why when you got out of the womb, it was like, what the hell just happened? Where did they go? How did this happen? Like, how did they do this so quickly? How did they end up with these traits? Like, we're going to have such a headache on our hands. They did try to take you out. Like, I'm not going to lie. There's something here about like family, like as within, as with, so without, like family disharmony around like whatever this pregnancy was. There was a lot of fear about these traits coming through in the way that they did. So you have the Magician here as being like this other energy that's around you that, how do I get this right? Because this is a lot. We might take this in parts. I'm going to have a snack and come back. You won't feel it. So before we even jump all the way back in, what this womb world tells me is that the archetypal story that you're coming in to conquer, you have to conquer a story. It's because that's why we have a fight, right? So that means a story that has held dominion over your people and that epigenetically holds dominion over you related to these traits needs to be worked out. So in your life, there's something that happened to you in your past that's a story that you now have to conquer. It's sort of like one of the sort of unifying themes that we're seeing with like part of what you were formed for. There's a lot more you were formed for, but that's sort of part of it. But when we see the Magician here and the Emperor and the Temperance, we're going to go through all of these, but we're coming in with Chariot, meaning from point A to point B. And so this is going to be your main guide, your warrior. This, I think, is a guide from your paternal family. So it was a warrior, and this would have been an energy that had come back, refining its like warrior politics skills over and over again. Now, an interesting thing with these guides is that these are going to be male guides, but they're also going to be male guides that are on an ascension journey themselves. So the guides whose traits like imprint on you, that means you had a relationship with these energies in the womb, and that what you're bringing in with them is unfinished, because these are epigenetic stories, these are impulses, these are things, parts of their stories that imprinted on your traits and being, that we're not talking about like a gang of holier than holy, ascended, most beautiful angel like lights. We have an angel here with you, but these particular guides are a little rough and tumble, and they had to work out their own ideas, their own attitudes. And so you had a particularly tough time because you have there's a lot of masculine energy that has kind of like been your guidance system, but you hold a very important like feminine magic, feminine energy within you that your masculine aspects are protective coding for it too. Like if you're masculine, you're very protective of this energy or this aspect of yourself, and if you are a female, like you might be very masculine, like driven, like meaning like these masculine influences might have given you a tough kind of exterior to a certain extent, or a relationship towards femininity where it's like somewhat hidden, trying to hide like weaknesses, even though they're not weaknesses, they're aspects of femininity that these guides aren't comfortable with because they portray them or feel them as weak parts of themselves. So there's like a lot going on with this shadow. And so you've got this coach energy and you've got this magician energy. Now the magician energy is going to be a different guide. So let's talk about that guide. I'm going to look at where do we want to go in terms of the cards we're using. These are you. Okay, so let me move these over. And let me get more on the nature of the magician. So for the nature of the magician, we're going to get one of these cards. So I am seeing very clearly that this was a water world. And I think with this collective being like the school of fish, you know, like, so we do, there's nothing new under the sun is something that is actually true that made its way into some scriptures. But I think it probably exists, across like religious syncretism. Let me just get some more. I want to see this magician more clearly. So this magician, like lifetime after lifetime, would have come back in a holy capacity. So this is an old soul. This is a soul that would have been a high priest, a high priestess, a shaman. This was always going to be the religious role in the family. But the religious role in the family, like once colonized, would have become the Holy Inquisition energies, the Council of Nicaea sort of energies. Like these are going to be like male expressions of a warped spiritual like something. So like that's where we have like we have to look at the energy as like being imbued with traits that like were very magical to begin with, but then got like caught up with whatever this energy is. So that's the energy that came back with you doesn't usually come back with female traits, because that energy, like that female, doesn't usually make it into the gene, the expression is what they're calling it, doesn't usually make it into expression. But this energy has had to contend with each one of these energies in the past, because they're coming back with you to work it out, right? So in the past, this energy has been really linked to the magical people in your family, the magical men in your family, actually. And it would have been high priests and priests, as well as like druids even, you know, because I'm trying to see this. They're saying no, because it's coming in on the mom's side for me. And so it's probably coming in... I'm seeing this as being like maternal, related to like the mother wound. So with the, so it's related to everyone's mother wound, but what does that mean in terms of the way it's like working itself out with, so this is a paternal energy, this is a maternal energy. They are kind of at odds with each other. It's kind of gross. I'm picking up on something that I don't like love about this overall. Because it's so weird. I'm looking at the collective as a whole with the School of Fish, and I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to like pinpoint if I see it as coming from anything other than this magic comes in from the maternal line. But your paternal line is interacting with it in a way that I'm finding a little confusing. They're saying like, just keep moving. It's womb worlds. Like we're not going to get it all the way. So this vision, the psychic image, this clairvoyance, the seeing, out of body travel. So this attachment is like this attaches itself to this high priestess magician role. That was where it started. So what started in and I'm hearing someone's ancestor say temple science. What started in temple science a very long time ago, that was linked to a divine feminine aspect of magic that is inherited with those traits. It hasn't been with a female in a really long time. And now you're coming in with not just those like magical traits on your mother's side, but magical traits that have been refined on your father's side. And so it's almost like too much power is like possibly in the hands of this influence. But so this is with your magic, with your psychic gifts. Now the Emperor here is part of like what this Emperor. And this is interesting because this Emperor has worked really hard through the family line, through avenues of Christendom. So priests, I'm seeing the conquerors, the holy wars. This is an energy that has fought this influence by trying to take control of it and trying to bind it through, like basically saying like, this energy that is bound to my magic now is bound by me. So there's an ancestor here, like with this Emperor, who is this energy within you that is like in charge of suppression, basically suppressing the energy, taking control of the energy, not banishing it, not breaking the bond, but somehow like doing all sorts of gymnastics to find ways of organization to control it and keep it away. And so you have this magician energy with you who wants to explore, who wants to learn, who wants to express. And then you have this Emperor energy with you who is like, absolutely not. We have to take dominion over this. And to do that, if we have to cut off a limb, we're going to cut off a limb. And that's a different kind of abandoning yourself. And so you've always been very much at war with this energy. And this energy towards you has had this very like honor killing kind of a vibe. But you have an angel with you also, and you have this Ace of Coins, which is the path that you're meant to travel. And so let's keep going because I can get stuck here with this like battling stuff. You're very powerful, like wave of power. So like that, all that to say that you are coming into the world with an amount of power that makes energies nervous, but you're acing it. You're passing this test. Now, another thing that I think is interesting about these guys and these traits being associated with masculine energy and that maiden there and that temple there and this energy having sort of like a romantic kind of a something to it. It's seduction. It's always had seduction, and it's always been after that divine feminine magic that it has had. That's going to be, you know, I can't really get away from this subject because I think that like I'm seeing that divine feminine, there's something about like that kundalini magic. It's a sexual kind of a magic. It's a divine feminine energy held like in like that terrain, like magnetism, sensuality, goddess, sort of like there is this tripwire that I can't like 100% get where there's this power struggle, trying to struggle for this energy. So like there's a reason why this trait doesn't usually come through in females, because of the nature of what that is. Let chance play its creative role in your life. So, chance. So with love the darkness and translucence, here's where it gets really tricky with the Temperance card. This energy, like there's some kind of a love bond. I gotta get it. It's gonna, even if this goes really long, I might make it like a 2-parter or something like that. I have to see this as closely as humanly possible because you were meant to play out there's like a dance, there's something that where you were meant to play out both in like your physical world and in your spiritual world, releasing yourself from captivity from a relationship with an energy that tries to take dominion over your life and just consume it. And like the nature of this energy is infatuation. The nature of this energy is you go into that like party with all the delicious foods and the music and you can never leave. It's inviting you into that like oblivion, and it says, I'm here to take you into oblivion so that I can just like it's a weird thing. I'm having a hard time like actually putting my hand like directly on it, but that seductive quality of this shadow has a special sort of like it's like a trance. What is the nature of it though? I don't get it. Like what are we? So it's a relationship. So you're going to be in relationship. You were meant to sort of confront this in relationship. So let me see more on that. Let me understand the truth here in terms of this womb world that's created. Is this even remotely? Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So when I say you come in with this power, it's a power that is like, has an irresistible, delicious kind of quality to it. It's addictive energy. It's energy that is like, has like a, yeah, it's you're very, very magical and powerful. I mean, that's like one way of putting it. So the Avenger, desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself, restoring. So on the shadow aspect of this arc, you know, with this character that you're engaging with, like resorting to violence in the name of a cause. And so that's gonna be, oh yeah, you know, this is a very powerful energy. You know, the Avenger is the light attribute of the war god, and the shadow attribute of the war god is tyrant. And so when we talk about the time that you were born into, the place that you were born into, the structures and the mechanisms that you were born into, you're in relationship to this energy in this story. And that's very confusing to me because that's this Temperance energy. That's this energy of like this angel. I don't know what else to say. This is the energy of an angelic something. But anything that's a tyrant, I'm so confused. Let's just keep going. There's something that is so obscured for me here with this. Spirit, help me see this clearly because I am. Let chance play its creative role in your life. So you were never playing by the rules, and because you were never playing by the rules, the way that you're defeating this energy is not in a typical way. You can't defeat a war god, because then you're fighting on its terms, and war is its specialty. So the only way to defeat a war god is to make that war god have a revelation and change its ways. And that's where the divine feminine magic of attraction and beauty and sensuality and sexuality comes in, because the face-off here is between the divine feminine energy that holds all of those powers and a divine masculine energy that wants to consume them forever without ever letting them, like, you know, sort of exist on their own, in their own right. This is a story that we're playing out. Even if we look at the world, you know, this is a spell and spell work that has such a strong hold that says love and romantic love and being like in oblivion, held by it and without any, you know, other like living is not true love. That's not real love. This is a false spell. This is a parasitic, like not it. So that's a big deal, because that means that, like, fighting with the feminine powers in this sort of, like, as this is playing itself out, we're talking about womb world, but then it kind of, like, you graduate into, like, a material sort of realm of what it means to fight for your sovereignty, for your independence, your own self-worth, even if that romance story had you, like, be soused about about what it is that is a value in life and what it is that is not a value of life. So that's how it's going to play out in your, like, 3D sort of experience. But in terms of, like, you know, what it means to defeat this story, it's taking something that is trying to control you and defeating it by saying, like, you don't really want to. Let chance play its creative role in your life. It's like opening up whatever that story is too small. And that story doesn't necessarily get abolished. That story opens up into a new, bigger story about something that is more profound. And so this has to transform, and it has to move from its shadow. So what does it mean to be working out the story as you move through it? It has to move from its shadow, which is tyrannical control over you, into its light, which is equals and advocacy. You know, I see the God in you and the God in me, and we are equals and we are advocates together. And so, you know, what would have been attached to your magic is like this selfless devotion to spirit. It is a love affair. It is wanting to have your magic. It is wanting to participate with the divine, like, arts of psychic arts and receiving messages and interacting with other energies and being in relationship to the universe and the world as an ecosystem and being a part of that ecosystem and what it means to learn and grow through it. This is going to be a seed that is planted in you that says you are a holy spiritual person. Where this can go wrong, you know, where you kind of have to work out these traits is this trait can be this trait that is coming in a beautiful, pure, like perfect life, unsullied, is a trait that is seeking dedication to spirit. Where that is corrupted is negative judgment on like the physical world and excess piety. So I'm just spiritual. I'm not a physical person. I'm only a spiritual special. I don't like participate with, like, you know, having to like do other, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where it gets corrupted. And so, so this desire to relate to the divine is totally normal. What you're able to sort of like give power to in the way of divinity, is it going to be a spirit that's trying to take your life and keep you from the physical world in an oblivion of piety, with worshiping it and not living for your own sort of growth, but living for its expansion? Like, is that going to be your experience of this trait, or are you going to transcend that trait, transcend that ancestral curse, and step into finding where that dedication belongs and removing it from where that dedication does not belong? So this is this thing that you're working out with this emperor right here, is saying it's not that the dedication is wrong. That's not the trait itself isn't evil. We can't hate ourselves. The dedication is beautiful, but finding the right place for it isn't about following a bunch of like rules that eat your life, you know? So like, this is where that transformed for you. You know, this angel here is coming in to help you move through these stories from the shadow into the light aspect of the story. And then that chain breaks, not only over you, but over the ancestor who has those traits and has learned, wait a minute, revelation, punchline, see it, can't unsee it, and then they're free. They see through your perspective and boom, it like opens up. And so you've done that successfully. So you've come in with the psychic trait, you've done that successfully. And so points, like where you're getting points and you're saying like womb world, you came in with this trait, how you used it so far was to discredit the devil and say, I know that I am seeking spirit with single-minded guidance, but I'm not going to do it for a tyrannical energy. I'm not giving my power to that tyrannical energy. That's spirit that I'm seeking is not a tyrannical energy. So that energy is already looking at you, and you've already gone so far ahead of all the other male, these men, in terms of breaking the spell, because most of them, the emperor in particular, gave himself to to following the law, to war, to violence. And I am seeing this is like a conquistador sort of trait, and so like that's where you've already transcended this. Now the angel represents this visionary trait here. And so this is an angel that travels with you as a guide, who also you would have imprinted. It's an angelic strain within your gene pool. And it gives you the ability to like envision what is not conceivable to others. That's how you're the only way you can break out of a false god's grip is to see some truth somewhere else. And the way that you have to do that is to see what's not given to you. It's seeing something that is not given to you as this is what you, like basically someone comes to you and says, look what I'm showing you, this is what you see. And you have to break out of that, is to see what others don't see. And to be willing to do that is to step out of the fear of not being in compliance. And so that's another thing that comes with this angel who, the trait is the ability to envision what is not yet conceivable to others and willingness to proclaim a vision without regard for personal gain. So you're saying, here's my vision, this is what it is. I don't have an agenda with it, but this is what we're doing. That's the light attribute. That's the light attribute of a visionary is I see, I say, I don't have to control. The shadow attribute of the visionary is someone who is going to take those insights, hoard them, package them, compromise the vision to make it accessible to everybody, so everybody gets it, everybody understands it. It's easy for everybody to eat it, so that you can profit off of the insights instead of just saying these are the insights. You know what I mean? That doesn't say that you're not meant to receive, for being who you are and what you offer the world you are. But that's where we go from a shadow of compromising the vision that you're given to make it accessible to others. That's giving that power to parasitic forces. Now you've done this. I feel and you're almost not completely finished with that, but you're doing that. So that's a trait that you came in to work out with this angelic energy. This is this angelic strand. And when this angelic strand of vision comes in and there's this energy of a false seductive, you belong to me for my agenda, then it becomes about taking those visions and then putting them into a story that is acceptable for the people who are going to accept this, and you have to detach from yourself. And then you can't see things clearly because you're seeing things for the purpose of something else that wants to manipulate with that. And so you've stepped out of that. That's again, not selling yourself to the seduction of something that's this, I love you only in this, this weird, it has it's a weird component, but the angelic energy has sort of allowed you to have a willingness to proclaim your vision. And here's the thing that's really important about having a willingness to proclaim your vision is having a willingness to proclaim your vision without personal gain means, without having an expectation that every exchange is going to result in, you getting paid. It also means not having an expectation with what you say that you're going to be received in a certain respect and in a certain, it's this tyrannical voice that says, see me the way I want to be seen or else I'm going to punish you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where this was stuck on the dial, is this notion of demanding to be seen in the correct way or else you're bad and I'm good. That's nuts. So Spirit is saying that where that was stuck here with that angelic DNA strand was my vision, and if you don't see how I see, you know what I mean? So that got moved. That really moved. That's where we go from tyrant to like advocate. So when you went through this process of change with this energy lurking that represented the false God, the false light, the false love, the false romance, and you were able to break out of that mosaic and allow for something else to completely new to come together, you were introducing to this angelic strain that says like, this is the only thing, and if you don't see it my way, tyrannical terror person, you know what I mean? Like that broke and made way for like the existence of and the expression of your true authentic expression, and like what it means to have a willingness to proclaim that vision without personal gain, without needing it to be about somebody else's like reception and about somebody else's agenda with that reception, and that's what you have overcome. You know, you've overcome that by stepping into this truth. This is where we enter the temple. This is where we go from the shadow having dominion into the temple space of self-knowledge, into the star space of healing and rising. And that's going to be, you know, the magical child in a shadow attribute is pessimism, depression, and disbelief in miracles, believing that energy and action are not required for growth. This is one of the worst traps I see people fall into. This is when all of your gifts just rot. And, you know, we're seeing that as coming underneath this Ace of Coins is going to speak to your path, what you're working out. And you do have these energies around you that are here to work out their stuff. But where we have something went wildly wrong, right, or wildly diverted. Now, what your guides are going to see in womb world as you inform and the imprinting that goes on, what they're going to know in womb world is the symbology of the life that you're meant to live, not the life that you're meant to live. And so when you think about the life that you lived and the symbols that would have been associated with it and the ancestors that were interacting with you as you formed around this archetypal story that you were moving through, they would have been horrified because you lived through it. You know what those symbols like translated to in terms of your material world's experience. And so they were really worried about this path. They were really concerned about this shadow attribute is being consumed by that energy. It's being eaten alive by that energy, and having your consciousness be absorbed into its consciousness and losing yourself into something that like isn't naturally completely you, doesn't feel like you. And that's that self-abandonment. And that self-abandonment, you know, that's what they were afraid of. That's what they're fighting against. That's what they think is going to happen with the magic that you bring into the world, is this is going to get eaten by this monster who comes in with an agenda that is meant to break you in the form of pessimism, depression, disbelief in miracles, believing that energy and action are not required for growth. Why? Because that vision of entering into oblivion, eating the delicious fruit, and like, yeah, the emperor is like flipped on its head in that environment, that chaotic environment, that can turn into that you're consumed, and then that being consumed and being stuck in that place of inaction, of lack of growth, of lack of stimulate. Like there's a false stimulation in place of actual stimulation, and you know, so there's something very scary about this with this path. There is like a real pitfall and a real fear around this. And the emperor was not the answer. You dethroned the emperor because the emperor said, never go look at anything. You can't go, and you can't go into any party. You can't have any music. You can't have any drinks. You can't have anything that like wakes up the part of you that could get stuck in the oblivion and then eaten by it. When you think about what you are as an energy, you hold energies and then you bring those energies into the world. When all you are is an object of desire, then you don't like that yeah, I mean, like that being consumed, an object of desire is then consumed, and it enjoys that somehow. And even fantasies of like, you know, wanting to be a star in one respect or another is about wanting to be consumed in a way where everyone around you then like thinks like you're delicious, you're perfect, you're amazing, oh my gosh. It's a false worship even. And so that's the false worship that is being elicited by this energy that wants to elicit that false worship through you, and then like there's this shutdown that happens. So the path is a path, and it's a call into a position where you see the potential for sacred beauty in all things and the belief that anything is possible. That's like the life calling. When this energy comes in and takes that and consumes it and makes it its own, it means like everything that you see potential for, it's in service of this story. And so when we break out of that story that says pessimism, depression, disbelief, that's like when you lay down, you don't try, you don't fight, you don't try to move through it, you just accept. So I think that, like, you know, when we talk about womb world and when we talk about what you're coming into the world with, you're coming into the world with symbols that you're meant to move through, archetypal symbols that you're meant to move through, the traits associated with them, and you have a unique potential. But with every unique potential, with every potential gift, there's also like, this could go badly if the power is being consumed and taken by another, or this can go well if it's to break these assumptions and these beliefs and this spell over us overall. So you're in this place. You're in this vital fight here with the temple and the maiden and the shadow, where you're going to have to make a choice. Is it going to be pessimism, depression, disbelief in miracles, believing that energy and action are not required for growth? That means you go to sleep, you wake up 5 years later, and nothing's happened. And everything was just consumed into a void of everything that I can do to keep myself feeling good, and everything that I can do to avoid not being in the presence of participating with. Like, it's so hard to get this right. Oh my gosh. Your guys are saying you know what it is, so leave it. Because with the child wounded here, the child wounded is going to be the rationale for the position of pessimism, depression, and disbelief in miracles. The way that this plays itself out is you have this trait of seeing potential, the potential for sacred beauty in all things, the belief that everything is possible. And you take this other trait that of awakening compassion and desire to serve wounded children in the world, and opens the learning and path of forgiveness. When you take those two traits come in with archetypal stories working themselves out along the lines of, with the wounded child, are you going to choose pessimism, depression, disbelief in miracles, believing that energy and action are not required? That's conquered. That's a decision that says the conquering has happened. Are these wounds going to conquer this potential in seeing sacred beauty in all things? So the shadow aspect of the child wound is blames all dysfunctional relationships on childhood wounds, resists moving on through forgiveness. So your path here with the Ace of Coins is to awaken compassion and desire to serve other wounded children and open the learning path of forgiveness, which means that that wounding serves a purpose. And there's a difference between accepting the purpose of a wounding or accepting like a defeat with wounding. Whether you have a wound and you say, here's for my purpose in doing these things that I'm meant to bring this light attribute of seeing the potential for sacred beauty in all things, you know, along with my vision and also like my connection to the divine, or I'm going to be influenced by negative forces, and these wounds are then going to translate into a reason for not growth. And with a path this important, this Ace of Coins, this wave of power, and this new path, the Chariot here, and everything that is like galvanizing to move this creation forward, you've had to learn to love in a lot of darkness. And so when we think about this Star card here, this is like, I see this as you being like chasing life out of the womb. This is life. Life has a hold of you. You have a hold of life. Life's not letting you go, and you sort of make it out. And that making it out is the healing. And so we are, you know, looking at this transformation from this energy that resorting to a violence against you, against your life, you know, sabotage, wounding the child, and moving it into balancing the scales of justice, healing this, not losing this light attribute, taking this light attribute with these other light attributes and moving them from these things that have to work themselves out, and I give up confusion, or I'm just going to give all my power to something else that's going to guide me, and I will lose the life that I'm living to that other agenda or that other opinion or that other chorus on, you know, my, like, that's what we're dealing with here, is like moving things like into like that, like, you know, basically moving through that story and leaving that story, having abandoned the lie and the fight for the truth, for the epiphany, for the punchline. Because you're meant to have an impact on this village. Not just of your ancestors, but you are having an impact on that village. It's your collective conscious, those of your ancestors, that release in their spirits, then translating into their lives, lifting the entire line up. You're doing it. You're doing it not just for you, but you're kind of doing it for everyone. So we're going to look real fast at because we're going really long with this one, and I don't want to kill you with length. We're going to just look very quickly at your path here. So, you know, we see what created you. You were created like through friction, really. And we see that you come in with a lot to work out with these energies. We also see that you represent the divine feminine magic in one way or another, and that it's an enormous amount of power, but that it's also linked to like this love story. And I think that's what we're going to look at real fast with this. Because there's a lot here that calls us into transformation, that calls us out of, you know, when we're in womb world, and in womb world, we're created as that light that comes into the world and awakens compassion and desire to open this path towards forgiveness. And the only way to do that is to keep a vision that there is potential for sacred beauty in all things, and a belief that anything is possible. That's going to be like in the backdrop of like the Emperor energy shadowing, like making a mess, the Temperance energy in its shadow making a mess, the Magician energy in its shadow making a mess. You would have had to sort of like be in all of these positions at a certain time, working your way through them. And that would have been hard. And that's kind of what your womb world was preparing you for. But now as we move away from like, this is like, you know, we've already conquered this stuff. What does it mean to now? Because, you know, you're saying this is where we are now. Child, magical, wounded child. Your path. What's your path going to be? Is your path going to be pessimism, depression, disbelief in miracles, believing energy and action are not required for growth? Is it going to be blaming all dysfunctional relationships on childhood wounds, resisting moving on through forgiveness? Or is it going to be, I was formed in womb world with a purpose that meant all of these traits were going to have to work themselves out. In working themselves out in my life, we have a chance to get creative and become free, to free ourselves from the tyranny of this dark energy that has been bonded to the magic that we naturally have for a very long time, and it never should have been. It was never needed. It didn't have to be. It was created from love, sex, magic somehow. I don't totally see the full picture there. But I mean, again, like think about like we're talking about womb world. It's created from love, sex, magic. So we have like counterpart playing itself out like in terms of real modern, like, you know, modern physical world, because this, you know, womb world is like old world. That's kind of how, that's that dimensional shift. So let me go ahead and look at this path a little bit closer. You know, we're gonna just work this out just a little bit more, because this isn't about like pointing a finger at you and saying, hey, look, you didn't ace every single test of the universe, you know, with your life. Like, of course not. You're in it. And you're in it to sort of like work with it. You know, that's kind of what we're doing. And so this is the fact that this is a rocky process, the fact that this isn't easy, like, of course not. Look at this gang of, you know, misfits, you know, that you've come to heal, to set free, to transform. And in doing so, like the ripple effects are beyond you and your lineage. There was a lot of hope that came in with you, and you actually picked up help along the way. It wasn't just your family that you were dealing with. At a certain point it was, but there was something about you using your magic despite the opposition of these energies in one way or another. Because again, as they oppose you, and they are losing, they're having to contend with the fact that their way isn't right and that there's a new way to have. There is still a tension in that dance. And you love these energies, and these energies love you. Your spirit guides aren't just against you, not at all. Every time you transform, you have that epiphany, punchline of a joke, revelation, see it, can't unsee it. They have it with you. So you have a team that supports you where you are. But this has been a figuring it out as they go along for them as well. And so the love that they have for you is without a doubt, and it is with no parallel. I mean, you're like this very cool magic. You have been child magical. You have said time and time again, when there's every reason to believe that there's no hope to be had and that you just have to lay down and cuddle and die with this energy in the cave. And every single time you've stood up at a certain point and said, nope, there's beauty in things. There's sacred beauty in things. I believe things are possible. I can put some belief out there. With mother goddess carrying children and food and well-being, and green man of renewal. So there's also, like, you have divinity is so fiercely on your side because you have been knocking it out of the ballpark. Whether you realize it or not, you've been knocking it out of the ballpark. You have been saying, I refuse to believe that there's not sacred beauty in everything. I refuse to believe that things are not possible. You have been going after divinity and seeking divinity, despite all of the stories that were designed to prove to you that divinity doesn't care about you unless you adhere to insanity. So they're saying you are with the ascended gods and goddesses of your ancestry because they are invested in your lineage. They are invested in everyone freeing themselves in your lineage. They are invested in the ascension of the whole of the body, just like they're invested in Earth's ascension. And so when they see you helping, like really not being taken down by difficult stories within the family that you inherited, by undoing the damage that was done, they are with you. The other world is with you. It's a powerful alchemy of support that never leaves you. Unless you side with this energy in the cave, unless you side with the energy that says, I'm going to break you down so that you don't believe you're worth anything, so that you can step into oblivion with me and I can consume you and the experience of oblivion through you. And then when you wake up, 5 years go by and nothing's happened in life. You can side and you can ally with that energy. That energy is like really cozy in a way that like isn't comfortable, but is deliciously comfortable at the same time. Like it's a comfort zone. It's the definition of a comfort zone, is that energy, but as you tap into this power of the other world and this relationship with the divine feminine and the divine masculine that are absolutely deified and connected to an infrastructure related to God's plan for that whole, and there is a central consciousness there. So your life path is about actual divinity, relaying actual divinity, being actual, like a representation of actual divinity in the world. And the healing capacity there is like without rival, like there's no, like the healing capacity there is complete. And so when you say, I'm not going to leave any part of myself behind, that does mean that there are other energies. Now, when I say that there are male guides with you, that your traits may exist in women in one way or another, but this particular combination, as is linked to like this profound magic on both sides. You've got the profound magic that comes in with this attachment, and then you have the profound magic that was placed in you in response to that attachment that is like as much magic as we can throw at it, we've got it from your dads. So you have such a concentrated amount of close to divinity. But an aspect of what you're working out is a false love story. And so there are traits that you have inherited that are associated with these male gods that predate just the males who've had the traits and belonged to females that had the traits. And those females that had the traits would have in one way or another been consumed by a love that they felt for this energy's presence. And that's where the battle really gets tricky, because these are aspects of yourself that you've inherited that have been suppressed, that hasn't been able to express, hasn't been able to work these things out through the lineage because of whatever configuration of forming and reforming kept on placing these traits squarely in, masculine, control. You do have to work out a false love story. That's something that may be related to. This is going to be the tendency to just want to be in oblivion with this energy. That's a love. Unfortunately, there's something there. And while I don't want this reading to go on forever, we can, Three of Cups. Okay, so our guys are saying like, here's the solution. I don't know if you saw that just kind of fall over. But, with this Three of Cups being about coming into community, the antidote to a relationship that cuts you off from community so it can consume you and not give you any social opportunities for growth, and not let you have a variety of interactions to choose from because it wants your attention. It's a consuming, controlling, codependent energy. And in fact, I would call it codependence if I had to name that demon, I'll be honest with you. So to step out of codependence is to step into community. And so this is going to be an ongoing operation in terms of choosing yourself over choosing. It is decentering romantic love, because romantic love, when you think about it, can be an idol. So as long as you're worshiping that idol, you're not operating in community in a healthy way. And I don't totally understand it, but like, this is the process, right? So we're going to kind of leave this here because this is your Akashic Records womb, in the womb world story of everything that you're sort of coming in to work out. And I think where we're leaving it right now is what we're still working on, what you're still working on. So let's come back to that. Because love the darkness and love in the darkness. And we're going to come back to romantic love and the false ideology and the false god of romantic love and serving the false god of romantic love and everything that means. We're going to do that next week. So for this week, we're going to leave it here with up to this point. We're working out this story, and as we move forward into the next part of the story, it's what it means to work out that. So let's leave that here, like food for thought, with these concepts. And you are surrounded by love. It's not that you don't have divine feminine energies all around you. You do. But there's the traits that you inherit. It's almost like they get the front row of not only influence, but observation, because they're working these things out with you. So this is kind of like theory of mind, unconscious mind, theory of unconscious mind a little bit. I don't even know if that's a thing, but maybe it should be. It probably is, because like, this archetypes, that's it. So let's go ahead and leave that there. Let's think about what it means to invest in community instead of investing in romance. And let's talk about what this means. What does this bring up? What does this mean in terms of understanding and transforming and working with the story structure as it presents itself. So, all right, leaving it there, sending so much goodwill and happiness and joy for this week ahead.